On the 26th November 2025, at exactly 1300 GMT, soldiers in Bissau announced they had taken total control of Guinea Bissau and detained President Embaló. From that moment, the political ground in the country shifted. The surface looked calm, but underneath, years of tension, rivalries, and institutional weakness finally broke open. This is Project Rise Africa, and today we will dig deep into what really happened in Guinea-Bissau and how it connects to the wider wave of coups happening across West Africa. Why ECOWAS has become almost powerless, and why this latest takeover might not even be a classic coup at all, but something more calculated and far more complicated. Guinea-Bissau went into its presidential election already stretched. The country has a long history of military dominance, fragile civilian authority, and internal political rivalries that never truly settled. When the election results became disputed and both Embaló and his challenger Fernando Diaz da Costa claimed victory, the entire system entered a dangerous vacuum. That vacuum is what opened the door for the military to take over. At the center was Brigadier General Denis Inkaha. He led the detention of President Embaló. Behind him, a high military command appeared, fronted by Major General Hota Inter, who was presented as the transitional authority. Their justification was familiar. They claimed to be restoring order and protecting the country from criminal networks, especially narco-trafficking, a force that has shaped Guinea-Bissau's politics for decades. But the contradictions started instantly. After detaining the president, the military appointed Ilidio Verate as prime minister, a man known to be an ally of President Embaló. That single move triggered the biggest question in this entire story. If you remove a president but install his ally immediately after, is that really a coup? Or is it a controlled reshuffle engineered behind the scenes to reset the balance of power without dismantling the president's influence? This contradiction became the center of regional debate. Meanwhile, soldiers secured key buildings, borders were closed, and the streets emptied. But there were no mass purges, no prolonged violence, and no attempt to completely uproot the old political system. Everything pointed out to a managed intervention, not an outright seizure. Then, negotiations started. President Embaló was released quickly and moved to Senegal with the involvement of regional actors. Former President of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, who was already in the country as an observer, described the process in ways that only added to the speculation that this was partly staged or at least orchestrated with prior understanding.
Happened in Guinea-Bissau, I wouldn't call it a coup. It was not a coup. For want of better word, I would say maybe it was a ceremonial coup.
Guinea-Bissau didn't fall into chaos. Instead, the country entered a carefully controlled reset, one where the military showed force, but also kept political doors open. To understand why this happened, you must understand the country's structural weaknesses. In Bissau, civilian institutions are weak and highly personalized. Political disputes rely far more on alliances and networks than on law or policy. The military has acted for decades as the ultimate referee. Whenever elections are contested or the government looks fragile, factions inside the armed forces step forward. Then there is the shadow economy, narco trafficking. It gives powerful actors influence, money and leverage behind the scene. This has shaped political calculations for years in Guinea Bissau. Now, put all this together and Guinea Bissau becomes a textbook environment for a takeover that is forceful but not chaotic, decisive but not destructive. This is exactly what happened. What happened in Guinea-Bissau is not isolated. It fits a pattern spreading across West Africa. In Mali, the elected government fell in August 2020. The military justified the coup with insecurity, corruption, and frustration. Less than a year later, in May 2021, the military removed very transitional government they installed. A coup on top of a coup. In Burkina Faso, January 2022 saw President Christian Kabore removed for failing to stop jihadist attacks. Later the same year, another faction overthrew the same first junta. Even the coup makers were not stable. These events reveal a clear trend. Elections are losing authority. Militaries are stepping in as political actors, and public frustration is being weaponized to justify force. And today, Guinea-Bissau joins that list, but with a twist. Instead of a clean overthrow, it looks like a hybrid takeover. Part military intervention, part political negotiation. ECOWAS used to be very effective. In 2017, they forced Yahya Jammeh out of the Gambia when he refused to leave office. In 2012, they helped stabilize Mali after a coup. In multiple past crises, ECOWAS acted as a strong regional policeman, but today, that power is gone. In the recent coup, ECOWAS condemned, ECOWAS threatened, ECOWAS suspended nations, ECOWAS imposed sanctions, but nothing changed. The juntas in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger ignored them. Eventually, those three nations withdrew from ECOWAS entirely. That was an institutional humiliation. It removed the bloc's strongest leverage and exposed deep internal divisions. Once ECOWAS failed to reverse three major coups in a row, a message went out to the rest of the region. The bloc has no teeth left, and that message matters. Because when Guinea-Bissau's military acted, they did so knowing ECOWAS have lost credibility. The deterrent effect was gone. Condemnation was predictable and largely symbolic. In short, ECOWAS can talk, but it can no longer enforce. Now comes the key analytical question. If a coup installs a close ally of the deposed president as prime minister, is it really a coup? Now, let's look at a classic coup. Typically, a classic coup will remove the regime, dismantles its power base, installs a new leadership circle. But in Guinea-Bissau, the president was detained. His ally was appointed prime minister. The military formed a transitional command. Negotiations softened tensions. The old networks remained partly intact. This looks like a different category of coup. It resembles a factional correction, a forced political bargain, a controlled intervention rather than a total overthrow, or rather a soft coup or elite reset rather than a revolutionary seizure. The military may have wanted leverage, not full control. They likely wanted influence, not direct governance. They may have used force to pressure political actors rather than eliminate them. Guinea Bissau now enters a new period. Not one of stability, but one where the military holds greater influence. Civilian rule may return on paper, but the militarization of politics will deepen. Now, across the region, the normalization of coups weakens democracy. Elections lose meaning. Leaders see force as an option. Institutions become optional, and ECOWAS remains unable to respond effectively. Guinea-Bissau is a warning sign, not an isolated event. The pattern is clear. Contested elections, institutional weakness, militaries stepping in, ECOWAS unable to stop them, illicit networks shaping decisions. West Africa is entering a phase where political transitions no longer depend on ballot, but on bargaining, power networks, and force. Now, I close with this. What happened in Guinea-Bissau is not just a national crisis, it is part of a regional shift, a new era where coup evolve, take new forms, and hide behind negotiations and strategic appointment. The region is changing, and the institutions meant to protect stability are struggling to keep up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification button to be notified anytime analysis like this drops. I know definitely I will see you again.